And here, let's get our minds somewhere else as we start our live stream here. Welcome, everyone, to the spoiler room for another On the Lam episode. I've got a big crew with me tonight, running away from the law uh, and gangsters tonight as we take a look at 1956's Nightfall, starring Aldo Ray and Anne Bancroft. And man, I tell you, I got a great assembly of crew here to sit around the table. So thank you for coming down the stairs, pulling up a chair, and popping your favorite drink with us as we talk movie spoilers. Yes, first off, he is back with us after a long hiatus. He's been a very busy man. It's none other than Michael Vyers. Hello, Mike. How are you?
I'm doing well. That's all I can say. I'm doing well.
I think he's still a little traumatized from our pre-show talk. Maybe I'm not sure, but
y'all got to throw a couple bucks in on the Patreon to hear that conversation.
And also with us, he's back with us, is none other than Mr. Joe Randazzo is with us. Hello,
Hey,
Joe.
everyone.
So glad you could be here today. And
glad I could be here. Been looking forward to this movie.
And the man who keeps coming back for more, it's none other than Mr. Ian Simmons. Hello, Ian. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great, especially with the pre-show, post-show, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, Michael's right. Gotta subscribe to the Patreon so you can discover the joy, the magic, I should say.
It got spicy, to be sure. And so anyway,
Spice Channel to be precise. Yeah,
Spice Channel. Oh man. No, see, shush! No, don't get me going there. Damn it, Ian! No, there went my bringing it back.
I can tell you what channel it was when I was a kid. Channel 33.
There you go. Well, what's not on Channel 33, what is here tonight, is a discussion about 1956's A Nightfall. Jacques Tourneur. I'm not French. I can't.
I don't know how to pronounce it. I've always said Tourneur. I don't know.
Well, he did occasionally just go by the name Jack Turner. So
yeah. Oh, did he really?
True, okay. He did. Yeah. Well, AIP would anglicize his name as Jack Turner.
So I just used to do. I just pretty much I try to put Turner with a little oomph at the end.
that really is how you say it in French. Yeah,
a little oomph. There you go, Mr. Jack Tourneur with oomph. And tonight, hey Mike, why don't you give the synopsis of Nightfall?
Oh fuck, I don't want to do it. Okay.
Okay. If you know what, we'll give it to Joe. Joe can. He's always good at it.
All right. I was about to post the link, so I'll take a quick second from that. Aldo Ray is shown at a newsstand, something that doesn't exist anymore. Incidentally, I lived just off that street that the establishing shot was on when I lived in LA. When the newsstand clerk turns on the lights, he gets very weird about it, and he kind of gets nervous. He goes to a bar where Anne Bancroft is drinking, but doesn't have any money. So she's been nursing a drink for a while. And asks him to borrow $5 so that she could pay for the drink. The drink apparently is 70 cents, so she buys him a drink and pays the tab. As they're leaving, they're stopped by two thuggish-looking guys who thank her for distracting him and keeping him there basically until they got there. But he has gotten her address at this point because they had talked about possibly getting together or him getting the $5 back from her. So he has her address. She wrote it down. He's got it in his pocket. These thuggish guys take Aldo Ray and begin questioning him about where he's hidden the $350,000.
Yep.
Apparently that is theirs. They kind of beat him down. They take the address. He fights back and manages to get away, which we find is a recurring theme with him and these guys. Apparently, they never finish the job. And they figure, okay, he's gone back to that house because where the hell else is he going to go? I guess it's a good synopsis, like where to leave off, and then we'll kind of discuss
yeah.
what happens from there. Because obviously they come after him.
And then it's a chase, yes. And
Yeah.
then he has an investigator who's been following him for months.
Yeah.
Which I got a little worried watching this. I'm like, oh, I picked this for On the Lam month, but he doesn't seem to be on it said authorities in the description. I thought I picked right. I'm watching it. This is it. And then the film takes a turn. Yes, folks, spoiler room, so prepare yourself. Then it takes a turn like, oh, good, I wasn't wrong. Okay,
he is on the lam. Yeah,
he is actually on the lam. Okay,
not just from the law, but also from gangsters.
From gangsters, yes.
Yeah.
So, 1956 Nightfall. Mike, you were excited when we were going to cover this. Were you familiar with this film?
Not at all. Just really like the director.
Same here.
He directed probably my favorite Vincent Price film of all time. I like his stuff with Val Lewton, so I was like, "Fuck, I've not seen this movie." Also, it was like just perfect in the schedule where it would fit in. So usually what I do with Mark when I'm on your show is I try to look, what haven't I seen, or what can I, or what am I excited to talk about? So I was like, man, I've never even heard of this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And as a director I like, so I was just really excited to jump into something new. And it was a fun little discovery, and yeah.
So is your favorite Vincent Price movie War Gods of the Deep or Comedy of Terrors?
Comedy of Terrors.
I love Comedy of Terrors. I absolutely enjoy that movie.
Comedy of Terrors is great. I have it over here somewhere. I've got the limited Midnight Madness DVD release that they did.
Oh, that old MGM.
So I've got the out of print one that's got the Comedy of Terrors and the Raven on it.
I have a couple copies of that movie.
Yeah,
I think I have that same DVD, but I also have the Vincent Price Blu-ray collection.
Sure.
There's 3 volumes of it. One of them has Comedy of Terrors, and that's cool because there's these. What's up?
I think I'm pretty confident. I think it's part 2.
Well, whichever one it is, it's cool because you have Vincent Price doing a thing for Iowa TV where he was presenting the movie. So that's super cool. It's on there as a special feature. But yeah, we're not here to talk about Comedy of Terrors, no matter how much we all love it. But yeah, I'm a big Jacques Tourneur fan too, which is why I was like, dude, I totally want to do this. I love film noir. I like Jacques Tourneur's movies.
Well, he's got a hell of a pedigree. I was looking it up. I'm like, we made a lot of films. So, I mean, this is a seasoned guy doing this noir story about a artist, quote unquote, on the lam. So, Ian, what did you think of Nightfall?
I loved it. I mean, I hadn't seen it until I watched it this morning. And I got to seek this out and get it in high definition because I watched a YouTube transfer of it. Not proud, but I did what I had to do.
I don't think it's on Blu-ray, unfortunately.
It's not?
I don't think it's on Blu-ray. I think it's only on DVD.
Yeah.
That's a crime.
No.
Well, anyway, I got to figure that out somehow. But it's Aldo Ray. I don't think I'd seen him before, at least not that I recognized him. And he's just got such a strange look and an affect to him that is almost non-actorly.
Yeah, for that time.
It's strange because he looks like a cross between William Shatner and Harvey Keitel with almost a William Hurt speech affectation. And it's, it's very cool. And Anne Bancroft looked like she was all of 19 in this movie. So to see them strike up this very bizarre chemistry, it's a film that, I was wondering if there was a plot to it, and that's not a criticism, but like that whole
I get what you're saying though.
Right. There's the newsstand. They're meeting at the bar. They're kind of talking like, where is this movie going? I have no idea. And when it finally gets there, like these flashbacks we're talking about where our main guy, Jim Vanning, who goes by a couple of different aliases in this movie, keeps running into John and Red, these two, thugs who are after this money. They flash back and they see them in contemporary times, and then they keep running into them. And it's always an escalation of the relationship between this guy and these two kind of hitmen, these enforcers, and then the relationship between the enforcers and themselves, because Red and Johnny think, they're just kind of like co-workers, but they really don't like each other. And you can see the seeds of other crime movies that would come out later, specifically in the 90s. I'm thinking Reservoir Dogs. At the very end of this, I'm thinking bright flashing red signals, Fargo. Oh my god.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
Right?
I thought that too.
But yeah, it's phenomenal. It's got one of the great climaxes of all time, and I think the best surprise out of this entire thing is that we have a bona fide, cheery, happy ending that didn't feel absolutely tacked on. I was, a lot of these kind of noir movies, like, oh, someone ends up like dead or jilted or cheated or alone to deal with the inner darkness that is themselves. No, I mean this. I was downright delighted by the time the credits rolled on this, and that's not to say this is a cheesy hokey movie. It's dark.
Yeah.
I mean, at one point when we see our Jim character show back up to Marie, I believe her name was, the Bancroft character's apartment in the middle of the night. He's just been done being worked over by John and Red, and there's blood splatters all over his white shirt, and they're so not uniform. They look like someone had actually been punching some guy in this shirt, and they said, "Here, Aldo, put this on." It's just like these details are everything, and it's wonderful film.
Yeah. And
Good night. I'll see you later.
what I particularly liked about it too is one, I hadn't really seen Aldo Ray during his prime. I'd only seen him when he got much older, was a bit more of a drunk, had throat cancer, just a shell of his former self.
Yeah, his 70s like grindhouse exploitation.
Even his like 80s, like like Evils of the Night, where he was unrecognizable. He was so fucking charming in a very working class way. He wasn't, because there's a certain style of performance and acting from this time period. It's I personally love it. He felt so naturalistic with his performance. He was very subtle, which for a guy as big and gruff as he is, doesn't feel like he should be giving naturalistic, subtle performances. But then just the dialogue was so well written and like I could have just watched an entire hour and a half movie of Aldo Ray and Bancroft going on dates, and you wouldn't even had to bring in the rest of this movie, and I would have felt completely satiated. And also, like, I can't quite explain why I 100% believe Aldo Ray is an artist in this movie. Just, very much that's that time period where you weren't an artist out of a passion. You're an artist because you're good at it. You can make a buck doing it.
Yeah.
And I believed him that entire time when he said that. It didn't feel false. I'm like, yeah, I believe you're an artist.
Well, because he was specifically an advertising artist, and there's something about just the way he wears that suit when he's in that bar talking to her. I immediately could see, okay, yeah, this guy just got off, sitting at a drafting table for 8 hours trying to draw a perfect, like, photorealistic stick of gum or something. Like, yes, that's the guy. He's not this bohemian kind of, dude with the beret or something like that. It's totally believable.
Yeah.
He's. Oh, I want to see more of him. I don't know if I could handle seeing him like the grizzled, unrecognizable version in his 70s. I definitely want to see more of this.
Seeing him like that, and then going back and seeing him like this, it's very depressing. It's like, because like I knew who Aldo Ray was. When you've spent as much time reading about movies or just learning about them, there's names that you hear and you know who these people are, even if you don't have necessarily firsthand experience with them or haven't seen their performance. So I knew who Aldo Ray was, but I now understand his like, and with only seeing one role of his, I understand his shtick. And I want to see if this continues, if this was an anomaly. I want to see more and start to develop this caricature I have in my head.
What about you, Joe, with Aldo Ray in this movie and this movie in general? How'd you feel?
Well, in general, I mean, much like Michael, my introduction to him was through 70s and 80s B movies. And I don't know if this is the first time I've seen him in anything this young. I might have seen a couple of other noirs with him, but not a lot. I really wish there was less noise right now.
No, you're very little. Don't worry. No worries.
But yeah, this is a different version of like you guys said. There is this charm and charisma to him that we don't, that like Michael and I weren't used to seeing movies like, I think it was in a movie called Body Shop, like a slasher movie, like from the 70s.
Yeah, pretty much.
And-
If someone could give him a couple $1,000, he'd be there.
Yeah, that seemed to be what he was doing back then. When somebody sent me, there's apparently a Blu-ray of this movie. I had no idea. Oh, it looks
Yeah.
like it's foreign though.
Yeah, that was me. Continue the conversation.
Yeah, sorry. I was just like, wow.
But yeah, so Anne Bancroft, you talk about her seeming young in this. I mean, she was born in 31, so she'd be 30 or 25. Yeah.
Wow.
No, she'd be 30 in this one.
She was born in 31, is 50.
Oh, and this was 56. So
Yeah.
so 20. Yeah, so she was 25 though in this, but yeah, well, comparing her to Aldo Ray though, she looks younger because Aldo Ray looks he's older in this between the two. But what got me with this film, and I dug it. I love noir, so this was right up my alley. But there's noir, and then there's noir, and the dialogue in this was so pulpy, like directly from noir novels. I mean, the whole double meaning, like, that whole conversation they were having at the bar was just, you look at that, you go, this is like true noir. Like they're pulling it right from the pulp novels. I mean, this isn't like neo noir or like, okay, it's noir because it's dark and we got our anti-character and all that. No, the dialogue as well throughout this film is consistent as well. This is like a pulp novel come to life, is what it is. And you don't always get that with noir films. You get them trying to, but the dialogue in this, when they were delivering it through the whole thing, you're just like, oh, you're an artist. What do you do? Cans, or what was it? Something like you do cans or people, or something. He's like cans, and bottles. It's like,
well, and the because I think she had established that she was a model at that point, and so he said something like, occasionally I do people, and then there was like that kind of offer, like, oh, you want to paint me? It was cute, and like what Michael was saying, I would watch just 2 hours of these. It would be interesting is if they never went on this adventure, but they just went on a series of dates, and their stories, like we get to see the movie told through their dialogue of like the kind of troubles they ran into. So I think they could pull that off. But I mean, like there was a scene in the car where John and Red have they've caught up with Jim. They're taking him out to the the kind of the oil barons to work him over, and Jim's kind of like, you can see that he's trying to work out his situation, but the other guys are reading it as him just being a tough guy. They're trying to break him down. And the last right before that scene cuts, Red says, "The tougher they are, the more fun they are." Tra-la, and he kind of sings that last bit. I'm like, that is so strange, and this guy's a total like whack job. I'm afraid for Jim. Oh.
Yeah, and you also see when he first shoots Doc, he instructs him to run. I'm going to give you 5 seconds to run. 1, 2, 3, bang! I could never count past 3. Which
or even in that same scene, when he was kind of walking him through it, how it's going to be a quote unquote murder suicide, and he's like, you have it easy. I give you a nice easy suicide, or because it's going to take me 6 or 7 shows or whatever he said to finish you off. So it'd be easy if you just did it yourself. Like, looking at the credits for the screenwriter, his name is Sterling Silliphant. Like, you look at some of the stuff that he's written, like he wrote In the Heat of the Night, The Poseidon Adventure. The man, the Poseidon Adventure is a masterclass on how to tell like a dozen three-dimensional characters at one time. Like, so it's no wonder that these essentially a quiet, small little film with only a couple characters, that he just can really knock that out so well.
Well, I think 5 characters. Oh, sorry, Ian, go ahead.
Oh no, I just really quick, I want to pick up on something Michael said. When they're talking through the scenario of how this murder suicide is going to go, there's something about the way he phrased, and then you're just going to put the rifle in your mouth or put up your head and then do the thing. I could see Jim, Aldo Ray, watching that moment in his head, thinking this might be the last thing I do. It's strange because I'm watching a movie and I'm watching someone in the movie describe a movie, essentially, this possible outcome. And I'm watching these two things simultaneously. It's very rare that I get that where someone can paint with words while I'm watching a film. But yeah, I was sitting there right in those shoes wondering, oh my God, what if that was me? What if I had to essentially kill myself in order to escape a worse fate, a more painful death? There's no good options here. On the other hand, am I thinking in that moment? Am I quick enough to think, is there a way out of this for me? Yeah, and it's a very, this movie is like an hour and a half long.
Not
You
even.
might not.
Like
Yeah,
hour 18.
it's like
super short.
Oh, that's right. It's 118. I watched something else like 126, I think, recently. But you don't think much of it to look at it. It's a film from the 50s, and it's a film noir. It's very easy. I always imagine trying to describe these things to someone younger today. The quick drive-by synopsis, and like, oh, that sounds lame. This is more gripping, and it's a repeating theme, especially this year, Mark, with these pre-code movies and revisiting like old noir films, that there's more going on in these films, these short little sketches of movies, than there are in the 3-hour bloated epics that we get at award season every year. The last 10 minutes of this film, I was on the edge of my couch, the edge of my seat. I'm watching on a laptop. It was a nail biter. I'm like, oh my God, because I'm expecting the downer ending. I'm like, that fucking snowplow is going through that shed. They're trapped inside and they can't move. Oh,
I mean,
it didn't happen.
It did feel weird that the guy never actually called. He never actually called the authorities, and kind of a throwaway line.
Well, weird enough though, with Aldo Ray's performance, like it makes no logical sense. But I believed him when he was saying, "It's like I believe that he believes that made fucking sense." And I was just in for it. Like, it's like, yeah, because like I always think like the best piece of screenwriting advice I ever got was logic. Too much logic can kill your movie.
Yeah.
And in this case, it's like, does that make logical sense? No. Do I believe it in the context of what's happening? 100%.
Well, what's the logic? I missed something here.
Oh, the when he's talking about the reasons why he didn't call the police. Right. I'm trying to remember his exact reasoning for it was that oh God, what was it?
I don't remember them even giving a reason. I remember him just saying, had I called them, they would be here. But
what I took that as is it's Ben Fraser is the insurance investigator. When he, Jim, and Marie get caught essentially looking for the satchel of money by John and Red, Ben says, oh, well, you don't want to do anything to us because the authorities are like right on our tail. I always took that as because there would be no time or reason for him to have called the authorities because he had just caught up with Jim and gotten the full skinny, and they're like, okay, let's go look for this money.
I see. I took it in that scene where he's counting down the days until the snowplows go up there, and I think Anne Bancroft asked him, was like, why didn't you call them or something, and instead of just waiting for his body or whatever to be found. And he didn't really have a good reason other than it kind of came off as just fear of it probably being pointed towards him. Because every logical sense in when writing a scene would be like, well, he should go to the cops, he should tell them. And I could, without him giving a logical reason, I could kind of feel like in a certain moment he realized calling the cops is a bad idea, and then when you get too far off from not calling the cops, it becomes more and more suspicious. And then he's just kind of in like, well, now I just kind of have to let whatever happens type of thing.
What are you gonna say, Joe?
I thought we were talking about Ben Fraser not calling the police.
Oh no, I was talking about when
I was talking about Ben. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah,
I was talking about Aldo Ray.
Okay, wait, we're talking about Aldo Ray not calling the police. But actually, I was thinking this actually, with the ending, makes a good companion movie to The Fugitive when we did that last week. Because you do have the guy who's after Aldo Ray, and at the end, he gets the full story and he figures it all out, and he's like, well, I mean, he still captures Harrison Ford at the end of Fugitive, but you get the sense when they're in the car that, yeah, look, it's a formality. We know what happened. You're going to be set free, and it's kind of the same vibe here at the end of the movie.
Well, I think kind of go back to Michael's point to clarify, talking about Aldo Ray, in that situation, the movie does present the audience and his character and all the other characters who matter with arguments. Like it keeps coming back to, why don't you go to the cops? Why didn't you call the cops? Why don't you involve the authorities? That question keeps coming up like one or two times, and his answer is always pretty much the same. Like, and I think, I can't remember if there's a context of this or some other conversation, but Marie had said that, real life is strange enough, or it doesn't make any sense. The idea that if he goes to the cops with the story of what actually happened, no one's going to believe him. And it isn't until the very end of the movie where Ben just happens to show up and tell him, yeah, I've been trailing you for months, and I've got all this forensic evidence. I've picked up the shells. Of different shootings. I've matched them to, this place and that place. So I can go to the cops with you with your bullshit sounding story and say, yes, but here's the forensic evidence to clear your name. It's not until that point where I think he would feel comfortable doing that. Unfortunately, that's when they run into the bad guys. So yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, the script is smart enough to ask the questions that the audience is thinking, like, idiot, just go to the police. That's what they're there for. But he's like, no, I can't, because this situation, these crazy turns of events, I keep running into these guys and I keep escaping and people keep ending up dead. It doesn't make any sense to the layperson. And they're not going to, give me the dignity of going through all this effort, because they're not paid to do that. This insurance adjuster guy they don't even know about is paid to do that. And that's what I think is brilliant about it.
One thing I found myself really appreciating too about this movie. So I love the way that information is dispensed through this movie. You know that Aldo Ray is being chased by these two guys. You don't 100% know why. They make references to this money, but you don't quite know everything until they cut to that flashback, that camping sequence. But what I really love about it is, Aldo Ray's character keeps talking about how he's waiting for the days the plows can get up there, and with the hope that what happened up there will be discovered. And he's just kind of laying low. And even though he knows that these killers are out there, I weirdly, I can't quite explain why, but I kind of love that he's not necessarily living in fear. He's still going to his job every day and doing his artwork. And it's just like, he's afraid, but he's not allowing himself to live in fear.
Yeah.
And it says a lot about his character.
And you guys are both right. This movie dispenses information really on a need-to-know basis, because even the flashback to when Doc is killed and they start shooting at Aldo Ray, and he hits the deck, and you're like, wait a minute, they're just going to leave him? They're not going to check? And then he explains immediately, because just as I'm about to say, wait a minute, what the hell? That's when he immediately goes, yeah, the bullet ricocheted off a rock that came up and hit me in the head, and they thought I was dead, so they left me alone. So I'm like, okay, now it makes sense, because I'm like, you clearly didn't get him. Like, they just gonna, like there's no blood anywhere. But then you see the blood on his head from where the rock hit him. Like, all right, and he flat out states it. Like, okay, that's it. We didn't need to know that until just now.
Well, and it circles back around to him earlier, because he makes an offhanded mention to Anne Bancroft. Oh, I have a trouble remembering things. Could you write your address down? And he played at a couple other points early in the film where he has trouble remembering some things. Like even when I think he was talking to on the bus stop, he was talking to the investigator who's been tailing him, who, by the way, the investigator in this film is one of the best film investigators in the history of film investigators of all time. This guy is amazing. He literally is talking to his mark like casually, and the audience doesn't even realize this guy's like sus or what until you see him talking to his wife, and even then he's just like, yeah, I just got a gut feeling about it. I'm like, oh shit, this guy's an investigator. But I loved the Ben Fraser character. But yeah, although James mentions a couple times he has trouble remembering. And that's the other thing is with this James character, most characters would fold a little bit easier or act nervous. He stayed consistent with, I don't know where the money is. Oh, I don't know where the money is. Even though he had an idea of where it was, he played it even as they were threatening to shove his arm into an oil rig. This guy, James Vanning's, he's got some cojones on him. It goes along with what you guys were saying too. He's still going about his business every day. He's not actually acting like twitchy, like constantly, except for, occasionally when the lights are on and they can catch his vision or whatnot. So you've got a great, go ahead.
No, continue.
I was just gonna say, you just got a great pairing between Ben and James. These two characters for the film, all the characters are just solidly written. Even though the film's not that long, you get who these guys are and the performances and everything. But especially James and Ben, when they finally meet outside the church, I love that it was outside a church. I love that dialogue of how, James is just like, gig is up, the jig is up. Okay. What do we do now?
He just kept like, take me in, take me.
He's just like,
I love that entire sequence.
You're gonna take me in?
Pissed at him. He's like, well, why are you acting like this?
He's like, shut up! I don't want to take you in. What the hell's wrong with you?
Michael, you were gonna say something?
Oh, I was just like, I'm still just thinking about everything Mark had just said and just the way that this character is constructed, and like I said, even like I mentioned before, that the fact that he's still doing his job and going to work and not like, I look for any excuse not to do my job. And this man's being hunted by killers and he doesn't. And he's not hiding. He's not trying to get caught. But it's like, as this movie went on, I just kept thinking like, what is his goal? What is his plan? And it's one of the few times in a movie that I truly just feel like he's figuring it out as he goes along, because he doesn't know.
Well, I mean, here's the thing. A couple of things. One, I just thought of something that you reminded me of, talking earlier about movies that I don't know if they were directly inspired by Nightfall, but spiritually so at least. The Usual Suspects. Yeah. The early line between Gabriel Byrne and Chaz Palminteri, when Gabriel Byrne's like, look, I've been walking around with the same name, the same face. Like, he isn't really hiding. He's just, hasn't been picked up. But my question is, at the end of the film, Jim knows where to lead them to that shack or whatever, where the satchel of money is, right? And Red and John had said, well, if you just come up here like 2 minutes later, we would have been gone and none of this would have happened and, whatever. Did he really have a memory problem? I'm wondering if that's something that he had kind of put on as an affect and would just tell people to make them believe it and to help make himself believe it, perhaps to construct this persona that will allow him to get up and go to work every day. Well, if they catch up with me, I don't remember anything. And you can ask anybody in town, I'm the guy with the bad memory because I had a head injury or something.
I didn't put that together, but I just thought like he had a vague idea of where the money was, but didn't know precisely where it was.
But I mean, they get right up on it. I mean,
but you're right. They do.
Montana's a big place. Yeah,
he does retrace his steps. He's retracing his steps because he figured he might have dropped it somewhere. Which I'm thinking to myself, dude, if you lost it in like the wilderness, I've been in the woods. I've been in the North Woods, and if it's snowing in that, good luck trying to find that money if it was lost in the middle of nowhere. But he figures he dropped it by the shack, and I just love that shot of the empty square. I mean, everything with this film, the way it rolls out is just beautiful. You're just like, wow. And then our villains, you've got Brian Keith, yes, of Castle and McCormick, I think it was that he was in, that many people might remember him in. Brian Keith is John and Rudy Bond is Red, two opposite villains. The one is the calm, cool, collective guy, and Red, who you think might be like a comic relief type of villain at first, gets scary real fucking quick, and suddenly he plays this psycho. So Red is scary.
Yeah.
And like Ian said earlier, like I didn't put it together until Ian said it. It's basically the villains from Fargo.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was thinking that the entire time I was watching it. Like when we got to that, as soon as that flashback happened, it's like from that point on, I just kept thinking of Fargo, and I can't. I don't believe that there's a world in which the Coens had not seen this, even if it wasn't a direct inspiration. It was something they had definitely seen and stewed on.
I've always heard they were big on noir, so I wouldn't be shocked if they'd seen this.
Right, but I mean, at the end of this film, you've got the snow. It's not a plow. I don't know what. I guess
it's a snow plow. Yeah, it's a snow. It's like a
snow reaper, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the giant blades. You've got that, which ends up devouring the one bad guy. It's not a wood chipper. It's a snow chipper. And then the last shot of the movie, what is it? It's the satchel sitting there in the middle of the snow, and the voiceover saying, I wrote that down. It's a bag full of money. Looks kind of small out there, doesn't it? Which mirrors Frances McDormand's line, all that for a little bit of money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We may have accidentally stumbled upon a huge inspiration for Fargo.
We're on to you, Joel and Ethan. Get back the Oscar.
How dare you use a great film for influencing your great film? How dare
I've
you?
definitely never done that.
No one's ever done that.
Also, a movie about insurance money. There you go. That's the whole.
That's true too. Shit.
Yeah.
Wow.
But can I
The Coen brothers like, what if we did this but Midwestern and funny?
One of the people we haven't really talked about too much, but I give mad props to her character, especially for 56, is Anne Bancroft's Marie. She's no damsel in distress. She's a tough woman. She holds her own. She knows, you can tell she's had experience with guys, and she takes no shit.
The moment I realized that I just really liked her character is once Aldo Ray shows up at her apartment, and she's being very non-committal about whether or not she was involved, and she's like, I don't remember her exact line, but it was something along the lines with, how do you know I did something? And even if I did, what does it matter? Like, what does it matter? You did something wrong. Like, she was just being very non-committal, but then also like, so what if I did it? What are you gonna do about it? Like,
and also who didn't say anything to me when the police are after you because she thought they were cops.
Exactly.
You're no angel yourself. Well, he was a guy who literally was in the wrong place at the wrong time.
and there's actual legit. I mean, this is going back to what Ian said, and I'm sorry for the get off my lawn moment, folks, but it's sure. This film is an hour and 18 minutes, and there are some legit tension-filled moments, like the fashion show, where she does her first dress, and she comes out because she goes about her job, even though they've got these guys out there. She goes about her job because they're trying to, she's like, why are they after me? No one, they don't fucking, she's like, I'm not really connected to you. So she goes about her job, and the guys deduce that she works at the fashion place. So when she comes out with the first dress, they're sitting there in the audience, and then she just plays it kind of cool. And she goes back and asks, well, how many dresses do I got to wear yet? Like 3. And you're like, oh shit. Okay. Well, most films, she's just going to bolt. No, she does the rest of her set
she's professional
to the last dress. And then there's that second time when she comes out and they're not there anymore. And you're like, crap. And I'm sitting here going, why am I feeling tension? This is a 1956 film, and I'm feeling tension. I'm sitting there going, where the hell did they go? And then she comes out with that third dress, and then they're standing further back, and it's like, oh man. And then she sees James, and she decides, okay, now nope, and she bolts and runs the best she can in this dress.
The reason we're feeling tension watching this movie is because we're in the hands of a director who was an acolyte of Val Lewton, who in the 40s at RKO was stressing suspense over everything else in the horror films that he made at the time. And we're talking about a director who directed The Cat People, which is one of the most wonderfully suspenseful scenes in movie history, as Simone Simon is walking down the street and just her footsteps clacking away, and she hears something behind her, and she just keeps going and going and going, and then the bus just opens its door ahead of her, and it's the greatest jump scare, one of the greatest jump scares like ever. So yeah, that's why Jacques Tournoir was one of the greatest suspense directors ever. Unfortunately, he doesn't really get his due. But every movie I've seen of his, I've liked.
Well, I think the thing that I enjoyed about that scene in particular is that it's suspenseful on several different levels, but it's not the classic, the like crazy, score settling in, or big, cuts or close-ups or anything. It's all very casual. When she goes back, that after seeing that they've left, there's almost a sense of relief when she goes backstage, until the person that she's working for says, "Oh, by the way, there's someone here asking for you. They want to know when you're going to be free." And so the initial thought I had, the same as Marie did, is, "Oh, Jim's here." But then she says, "Wait a second, they?" She's like, "Oh yeah, there are these two guys here." And then she's like, "Oh fuck." And then she goes back out. The other thing is, when she goes out that third time and she sees Red and John, and then she looks over and she sees Jim, and they haven't seen Jim yet. I was waiting, because I've seen variations on this in other movies, where it's like, I'm waiting for Anne Bancroft to just like do a subtle like tilt to the eyes to Jim, like, run. But no, I don't know if it's because I've seen this done poorly in 100 other different stories, or if this was just revolutionary for the time or whatever. But her bolting from the catwalk down into the crowd and chasing after him in heels, then he sweeps her up off her feet to get upstairs to the cab. It's an interesting geography and architecture going up to the street. It's wonderful. And the cab gets stuck that they get into because the cabbie's like negotiating with the lady over the 20 cents or whatever. It's great because
I love that moment so much. That is definitely
so
a Coen Brothers type moment.
Right, but it's so tense because it's so real. You don't have to do anything crazy in terms of the filmmaking. The story does it all for you.
Yeah, well, you just know that there's killers there, and they need to, like, that's all you need.
Well, let's work in the element. They manage, again, new filmmakers look at films from the 50s. They managed to incorporate.
Wait, the 1950s? Gross. They're old. They managed in black and white, Mark. Ew.
They managed to incorporate all the main pieces in this story, because not only do you have them running from Red and John, they get in the cab, they're waiting, they're getting stalled. Not one car or two cars behind them is Ben Fraser, who's been following them. He's sitting there, and in the window, while he's sitting there just watching the cab, you see John and Red walk up past him, and he doesn't know who they are. And I'm just sitting here going, this is wonderful. I love this whole sequence, because you've moved all your pieces on the board in a few minutes here, and it's wonderful to watch, And then we talked about talking about tension. We get to the end, and you get a conflict between your two bad guys, which is about the only way you could really get our good guys out of this, is when they're John and Red get conflicted, and Red takes care of John, and he tries to bolt, and then
can I just talk about that moment with between John and Red? And I just love that entire Red moment where Red's like, "Why don't you like me? I need to know."
Before I kill you, I need to know, why don't you like me?
Yeah, right before he shoots him.
Yeah, and it's like the way that Rudy Bond plays that, like, he legitimately wants to know. Like, he's legitimately hurt by the fact that John doesn't like him.
Yeah, because Red was all for working with John. He's like, what the hell, dude?
Well, I mean, but that's the thing, is like, is in that moment, in that question, in the performance, you just get this sense of like this lifelong of insecurity. People thinking probably that Red is just the big dumb muscle, that nobody respects him, and he doesn't want to be disrespected by someone that he probably looks up to in some capacity. Like, what, you think I'm dumb? I could kill you right now. Like, well, that doesn't really make you smart. But yeah, it's that scene again, going back to Tarantino, it's a two-man Mexican standoff with an audience, literally a captive audience in the corner. Like, what the hell are these guys doing? One thing I wanted to mention briefly,
Yeah.
and again, it's a detail that, like, you could look at her as a completely superfluous character, Laura, Ben's wife.
Oh,
She's
yes.
she's in 2 scenes, and she's the kind of the doting housewife. She's got the roast on, and when hubby comes home, and she's like, "Oh, come take a load off." What she does is very important, because I think without her, we're always going to be wondering about Ben. Is he an insurance adjuster who's trying to get in touch with Jim to find out where the money is so he can take a cut or take the entire thing? Is he crooked? But no, he's established as a bona fide good guy. I mean, imagine if this character, the only thing we see of him is he keeps showing up in sort of pursuit of Jim, much like Red and John does. He's just a bit more sly about it. It seems like he's working an angle, but he's not. He's on the side of the angels. But Laura, I think, is the key to unlocking that aspect, because we're taking our suspicion off him so we can focus on the true shady characters. This movie doesn't have to be all full of duplicitous characters.
And I love their relationship. We get so little of it, but we've been so trained by, I don't even want to say lesser movies, because some really good movies do this as well, where whenever you have a person, he's an insurance adjuster, but he's essentially the archetype for a cop or detective or something like that. Someone who's really committed to his job. The husband and wife will normally have relationship problems because he's so dedicated to his job and not really. We see that all the time. And I love that there is not that element between them. Like, so much so that, he can't sleep. So he goes to the apartment that he rented so he can keep an eye out on Aldo Ray. And she calls there just like making sure he's okay. Like, I love, they subvert that expectation that so many movies, probably from this time period and after have all ran with, that it's nice just to see a supporting couple. And then also to see that in comparison to what Aldo Ray and Anne Bancroft's relationship could be. It's like, I just want to be like, Jacques, were you married? Did you have a good life? Because like this is a very positive depiction of romantic interest, and I'd like to see it.
Well, go ahead.
The Fraser character kind of reminded me of the Edward G. Robinson character from Double Indemnity in a way. Like, he was just the hard-nosed, I'm going to figure out what the scam is. I'm going to figure out all the facts, and then I'm going to confront you with it. And I feel like that's what he was probably based on, considering that's like the film that's considered as one of the starts of film noir, one of the beginnings of film noir. So that was just, I wanted to throw that out there.
Well, going back to what Mike was saying about the Laura character and Ian too, is there's that moment where, he calls up and she's not upset that he went to go spy. In fact, it's just like, he's like, yeah, I think you might need to pack a bag. And then, and then he was kind about it too. He's like, if you could pack a bag for me and then go back to bed, honey. He's like, like, and she's like, oh, you think you're going to be traveling? Not like, oh, you're traveling again. We don't get that. She's just like, oh, you're traveling. Yeah. He's like, I got a gut feel. She's like, okay. And she's just like, she's been through this with him before. You're right. She is a woman who understands the job her husband has and accepts it. Even if she may not care for it, but she doesn't care for it in a way of she gets concerned for his health, not doesn't care for it because, oh, she's lonely or whatnot. She's just like, oh, are you sure? She's like, okay. Yeah. And it's just like,
it never feels like it's a me or the job situation.
No.
And maybe that's our hint. That's our hint that he's not going to be someone duplicitous, is that even his wife, who could have a reason he maybe has never given her a reason to doubt him. So that could be our signal that, no, we shouldn't doubt him either.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, they could have gone the angle where it's like, oh, where he's even got her fooled, Yeah. But they don't. They keep the story as for as much layering as there is in this movie. Maybe it's not even layering; it's just good storytelling, which we haven't had in a long time. But yeah, it's very simple. very colorful. And again, like we were talking about, just watching a movie where Jim and Marie on a date, I could watch an entire series about the Frasers. call it Fraser. Oh.
Yeah.
Well, and because I loved the casual when he shows up at home or whatnot, the casual conversation between Laura and Ben, how he's just bouncing ideas off her, and she's like, "Oh, you think you got a gut feeling on it?" Like she knows her husband too. It's like this little film called Nightfall, 1956, has such wonderful character dynamics and presentations, and it's so lean. As you guys mentioned, things are answered when the audience has the question. Like even
Like
how
as
did the
soon as I think of it, like it's immediately answered.
Yeah.
you know, how did the first bullet miss him, you know, with Red being so close? And you find later on when they go back up near the end of the movie, you find the coffee pot that has the bullet hole in it. It was the coffee pot he was holding at the time. It was like right behind him. I'm just like, this film keeps it tight. It keeps it tight. And again, back to where I was talking about the Tetra, why I wanted to bring up the snowplow again was you had Red, you know, bolt. You have James go after him, and I'm like, oh, okay, here we go, the final fight between these two. And then I'm thinking in my head, it goes with what you're saying, Joe. Well, what are we going to do about Ben and Marie locked up in the shed? Are we just not going to see them till the end? And then the snowplow starts, the blower, with them fighting in it. I'm like, oh shit. I'm like sitting here.
We saw nothing. All we got was like go back to the snowplow. Like we just got like a push in on the snowplow, and I like audibly went, "Oh shit!" When I was watching, like I didn't see anything, and it was more shocking than movies where I do see it.
Yeah, well, we didn't cut right away. The minute the snowplow started, we didn't cut right away to Marie and Ben. We watched these guys fight, and we let the snowplow get a little further. And then they cut to Marie and Ben looking through the slat, seeing this thing coming towards them, and they're just staring at it like, well, shit.
Well, it's also and I don't remember, the way I'm remembering it is we don't get any like Indiana Jones style like fisticuffs in the cab of the snowplow, or at least very few. A lot of it is outside from behind, watching it slowly inch toward the shed, and the characters like fleeing each other inside and out of the cab. So sometimes one person's driving, sometimes it seems like neither of them is driving. And at one point, you know, Jim has to hop back in and try and like crank it to the left so it, you know, avoids the cab. It's great tension. And yeah, again, it just shows you don't have to get crazy fancy in order to make something compelling.
And unfortunately, no Oscar love for this. Like I was just looking, I was like, no nominations, nothing.
Maybe, I'm going to say this, even though you don't see any blood because of the time period that it was made in, this has one of the more brutal kills I've ever seen in a 56 movie.
Yeah.
Because I'm like sitting there going, are they really going to throw Red under the plow? I'm like, no, they're not. I'm like, this is 56. It's not, you know, and they're fighting. I'm like, how are they going to get? So they fight, and Red's in front of the plow, and Jim's there, and he goes, oh, here comes the snowplow. And Jim jumps out of the way, and you hear the crunch. It's not just that he runs over. They actually put a crunching sound in the snowplow sound effect as it moves, and then Jim turns the plow off, and then he goes around the front and he takes a stop and looks down, and it just goes.
I'm surprised they went that far in 56.
Yeah, honestly, yeah.
I mean, you know, it's one thing. I expected them just to show Red and snowplow, and then you see the plow drive away. I didn't expect the crunch. I didn't expect the stop or Jim to look down. I'm like, man, okay, this is really brutal. I know you're not showing a lot, but this is savage.
They missed an opportunity, though, for Jim to turn to Marie and say, you know, well, it's a fitting ending for a guy named Red.
Yeah.
But, you know, would have made more sense in a color movie.
Yeah.
What I got to give a quick shout out, though, to the opening moments of this movie. You mentioned the newsstand. I had to go back and rewind because I couldn't believe what I had heard. When he's looking at the selection of Chicago papers, and the guy comes up and says, you know, what are you looking for? The guy says, do you have anything from Evanston? I'm like, That's the town right next to where I'm sitting right now. My kid goes to the Evanston School District. It's crazy.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah,
that's pretty
Small
funny.
world. But yeah, I mean, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I've while we've been talking, I've just been I know a fair amount about the director, but I mentioned a couple credits before, but I've had the screenwriters information pulled up, and can I just read to you guys some interesting shit about this screenwriter?
Yeah.
So not only
Go
did
for
he write In the Heat of the Night, which he won an Academy Award for, he created the TV shows Naked City, Perry Mason, and Route 66.
Oh,
He wrote The Towering Inferno and The Poseidon Adventure. He was a head writer on the Mickey Mouse Club back in the day. On top of that, he also wrote Village of the Damned. He wrote the Charles Bronson movie Telephone. He wrote the Sam Peckinpah, The Killer Elite. He wrote the Dirty Harry film, The Enforcer. He wrote Shaft in Africa.
holy shit.
And he wrote Over the Top. with Sylvester Stallone. Like, and he was friends with Bruce Lee and trained in Jeet Kune Do. What a fucking life this guy has had.
Where's his biopic? I
you
watched
right?
that.
In the beginning, you were just naming off like all these crime shows, and I'm like, oh, okay, well that makes sense. And then you just hit us with like the Mickey.
Oh, yeah,
Mouse
I was saving, and like this. If you look at his career, this was like obviously pretty early on in his career because he had such a long career. This was like the first movie he wrote.
Wow.
The first that got produced, I should say.
Yeah.
And he wound up being kind of a journeyman because it looked like he was just kind of a jack of all trades as a writer. It's like, yo, as long as your check clears, I'll write it. You know,
Yeah.
where he was.
Which fits in with Jim, who is a freelance artist.
Yeah.
So like as I've been sitting here staring at this stuff, I'm like, I feel like this is worth mentioning because it's just an interesting career, and he came out the gate swinging pretty good.
Much like the director too. The director started out with the cat people, and I walked with a zombie, and he had a lot of great stuff early on too.
Oh, I got a little trivia since we're reading some stuff, if you guys don't mind. Tarantino, you'll like this one, Ian. Tarantino said he developed Butch off of the character of Jim in this film. Fanny. Pulp
I
Fiction.
could see that. Yeah.
He-
Actually,
he-
I thought about Pulp Fiction while I was watching that, and I think I flashed on Bruce Willis. At some point during the movie, I couldn't figure out why, but we talked about Pulp Fiction a couple of weeks ago.
And
He
then
said,
I know,
yeah.
oh,
go ahead.
continue. No, I was
just
just gonna
gonna
say I know Tarantino's a fan of Aldo Ray because he pretty much named a character after him. In
Yeah.
Inglourious Bastards. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I should say that he based Butch specifically off that character, but he said this movie influenced his development of Butch. So if you look at Butch and you look at there's not you can see the hints there.
That does make sense. Yeah.
I can clearly see that.
Yeah. Apparently Marie says her fashion show dress. Oh yeah, in the film it said it cost $650. And as we do here on the spoiler room with these old films, we're going to do some conversion. In 2020, that equaled $6,130. Do you want to go ahead?
Oh, I did that earlier in the movie when he bought the bus tickets. That would have been about $600 back then.
Yeah, so these 70 cents for the drink would have been what? For the 70 cents for her
that I don't know, but I decided to look up the bus ticket for some reason.
So, and then just so you guys know why these guys were so hot for this $350,000 back in 1956, it's about the equivalent of a little over $4 million today.
I'd be hot about $350,000 now.
I would too. It wouldn't.
I'd be excited for $50, honestly. I'm a cheap date.
I'd be, bro. Yeah, I happen to stumble upon $350,000 in 2024 money. I'd be like, oh fuck, I'm good.
And I'll hit you up for $50.
Someone should do that movie where they're like everyone is like willing to kill people and go to the ends of the earth for $50.
Well, the Simpsons did it with that the Homer Krusty the Clown episode.
Oh yeah,
Krusty's escaping and getting plastic surgery done to get away from the mafia, and he hands him $40 at the end and your change.
I'm now thinking of that moment in Once Upon a Time in Mexico when like Johnny Depp gives a character a little lunchbox full of money. He's like, I couldn't find a briefcase small enough to fit this little amount of money. So he put it in a middle lunchbox.
Oh man. So I think we'll wrap it up here, folks. Nightfall, as you gathered from our panel, we all, I think, in agreement that we recommend this film.
Yeah, definitely.
It surprised the hell out of me. I picked it because I was looking for films about folks on the lam who were wrongly accused, and I ended up crossing this film, and I'm like, wow, I would actually see myself watching this again, because not only is it breezy, but it's just solid filmmaking. I mean, from end to end, it's very little issue, if any, at all with this film. I dug it so much. I'm watching it going, first with the dialogue in the beginning, and then we get to the oil scene, and they're getting the conversations, and then it just builds from there.
I can honestly see myself just rewatching the first 20 minutes of this movie. Like if I'm ever like trying to, if you have to write a scene where two characters are kind of falling for each other in a short amount of time, like this movie does it so effortlessly.
Yeah, and they both look so happy like right as they're leaving the bar.
Yeah.
It's amazing, like just how they just look like, oh, everything's gonna be. You end that movie there. These two live happily ever after.
They just have that. They're just gonna have that happy movie moment, and the two thugs come up posing as. Folks.
It's also worth mentioning too, because this is interesting to no one but me. But I make very specific lists on Letterboxd, and I keep two constantly of one, food and film, or and characters' coffee orders. And this movie hit both of them because there was some fried trout fried with lots of butter and breadcrumbs. And Aldo Ray drinks a black coffee with a huge scoop of sugar. So uninteresting anyone but me, but it made both lists. One movie made both lists.
I have to go like your list. I know I follow you on Letterboxd. I have to go like your list.
Well, I just wanted real quick the whole thing about you could tell that they were in love when they left the bar, and then there's that scene when they're on the bus and they're going through like Utah on their way to Montana, and Maria's like, it's been a crazy couple of days and I love you, and then they're professing like, oh, we could spend the rest of our lives together. Essentially, I believe them. Because of the characters and the relationship they've established in this 48 hours. We see all of that in the movie. Unlike, was it Safe in Hell we were talking about last week, where the two characters, like one says, I love you or something like that, or no, it was a different movie. I'm sorry, but I watched a movie recently, and two characters who had just met, who have nothing in common, they're professing their love within like 10 minutes of screen time. It's just it's crap. But this is how you do it in a movie that is, I guarantee, shorter than that other one that I'm talking about.
Yeah,
hour and 18 minutes. It's crazy.
Is that there's no there's no fat to these. They are just, you're only getting what you need to move the story forward, and I really appreciate that. I love that about these movies. They're all like 70, 75, 85 minutes.
Well, you think about
you don't need that,
Well, it's a budget thing. I mean, this isn't a high-end budget film, so they didn't have probably a whole lot of money. And as we know, film is expensive. Film is expensive, especially even back then in '56. Film was definitely expensive. So if they're going to shoot a film, they don't have a lot of time for fat. They don't have a lot of time for extra padding. I mean, I hate to say it, but while I know it has helped indie filmmakers quite a bit as far as the digital equipment, Hollywood picked up the digital equipment, and I think it's made them lazy into keeping things lean because they don't have a film stock budget anymore, most of them, So I think they've gotten a little careless, some of them, with their storytelling, because hey, we can literally shoot and process this a week before it's got to be released because we just push out the freaking video file, versus film to where, well, shit, we only have 300 feet left to film on this.
Well, it's I take what you're saying, Mark, but I think the key in what Joe is saying is like, yeah, it's lean. You got to get to the point just to tell your story. But there are movies that are a half hour, 40, an hour longer than this one that make the attempt to build chemistry between characters. It's still unbelievable. With this movie, you have just a couple of scenes between Marie and Jim, and by the end of those scenes, you believe that they are, meant to be together. And I was so glad this movie had a happy ending, because I would have been genuinely upset if one of them had died. I'm like, no, these people need to be together. They deserve love.
And honestly, I think it's also, this was probably released. When you think of the time period here, you probably, it's Columbia. You had a Three Stooges short. You had, whatever. This was probably the B movie versus whatever was the A picture that was getting them in the door. So the B movie is usually going to be a little bit shorter. It was probably, whatever Columbia put out in '56, that would have been the A level movie. This was going to have to be a little shorter, because now you're getting to the end of the night and people are going to want to go home. So yeah,
I'd be curious to find out what that is, because this is an A+ picture. This needs to be at the big of the marquee.
Yeah,
well,
I agree.
We do have the internet, so we got a little time.
We can look at what was released around the same time.
Mark can cut this shit out. Like,
I didn't mean you could do it right now.
No, well, Nightfall was released December 5th of 1956. Around that time, there wasn't another release. Before that, they had Columbia had 3 films. In November 19th, 1956, Columbia worked with Toho to release 7 Samurai. Wow. Yeah. September 14th was Don't Knock the Rock. There wasn't really a whole lot of big films, as far as Columbia goes anyway, that would have been released at this time. But there's not to say there wasn't a different film that was bigger that they released. Wow, 1984 was released in September of 56. So anyway, Columbia itself didn't seem to have anything big, but
I'm trying to look up marquees right now from that time period.
Yeah, I'm looking at January of 57. Yeah, maybe I'm wrong here. Maybe there wasn't anything. Yeah.
They needed to fill screen time, so that's why.
It's weird that would be. There's nothing else that jumps out at me.
No, that's interesting though, that because this does feel like a lower end movie. You didn't really have anything out at that time. I mean, Affair to Remember didn't get released until December 28th. So yeah, it's interesting. So interesting time, interesting film, folks. Hopefully you found this episode interesting, and we'll seek out Nightfall. So
if they didn't, they're wrong.
If they did it, they're wrong. Yes, that's
right.
In all honesty, I did not expect this film to be just as good as it was. I was like, wow, this is a really solid movie. And I think you should check it out, because it still holds up today, in all honesty. There's not too much as far as period wise, because they keep it tight and simple. It's basically 2 guys chasing a guy, and a girl and an investigator get involved. That's it. That's really the bare bones of the story, but they keep it intriguing to where you won't even notice the runtime, and you're just like, oh, wow, damn. So now's the time where I give my crew members their license to shill. So Mike, please go ahead. The floor is yours. Your license to shill.
So those of you who know me know that I've been hosting a critical analysis film podcast for the last 8 years called The Shameless Picture Show. We are available on all your podcast platforms of choice, like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon, Audible, iHeartRadio, so on and so forth. And you can also listen to us directly on cinepunks.com. That's CINEPUNX.com. There's a lot of other great podcasts on that network. Yeah, you can also, if you're interested in physical media reviews, I do those on Instagram and TikTok, and I'm usually doing something with film everywhere.
Yeah, and if you happen to catch the Milwaukee Film Fest, there was a certain someone who did an actual moderation of a certain, didn't you, during the film fest?
Well, during the Milwaukee Film Festival, I was just there as press.
Oh, okay.
That was my first time getting a press badge for a film festival, so that was fun. But for the Milwaukee, I did just host the Milwaukee Illuminate Film
That's
Festival
what it
this
was.
past
Okay.
weekend. They are a newer film festival on their second year that uses their platform to try to give voice to underrepresented voices in film and video.
Very cool. Very cool. That sounds like a cool fest. So awesome you got to host that. And Joe, please, sir, shill away, my friend.
Well, I'm going to be on an upcoming episode of Michael's podcast because
That's
we
true.
we recorded.
I'm going to be editing it this week.
Yeah, the shameless episode of The Searchers, the John Wayne movie,
nice.
which I should have seen a long time ago. We talked about that.
It was the first time for us both, and it was a good episode.
I'll be. I don't know if it's posted yet. We just recorded a Batman the Animated Series podcast for Literary License, and it was actually the end of Batman the Animated Series, and we started going into the new adventures of Batman and Robin, the 1997 series where Tim Drake is now Robin.
Yeah.
For the most part, though, we've only done like two or three episodes of it. So for the most part, so far, it doesn't seem to be. The animation's different, but it doesn't seem to be too different. We're going to be doing this week. We're going to be doing Paranorman and Frankenweenie.
Oh, nice.
That'll be part of our Dark Families and our Dark Family films. And then next week we'll be doing anthology films. We'll be doing The Monster Club and Company of Wolves.
Nice.
So yeah, look out for us there. That's it for what I'm shilling at the moment.
Cool. Mr. Ian Simmons, my man, the floor is yours.
I'm Ian Simmons. I run Kicking the Seat, which you can find at kickseat.com and also on YouTube. If you look up Kicking the Seat on YouTube, you'll find me there. We got a live stream coming up on Wednesday at 8 p.m. Central for Inside Out 2. And then Friday, I should be posting an interview I did today with the filmmakers Joshua John Miller and M.A. Fortin, who wrote and Miller directed The Exorcism with Russell Crowe, which is coming out. And you might know Mr. Miller as not only the son of the exorcist Jason Miller, but also the kid from Near Dark and the little brother from Teen Witch.
Yeah, I remember that guy.
Yeah. So very cool. And come check us out. And I'm also here every Monday.
Yes, you are. And hope you folks enjoyed this discussion. SpecialMarkProductions.com, in case you're not aware of where you can find all the stuff that I do. I don't do a lot. No, just I got 2 interviews that I just posted on the podcast, though I do have to update the webpage yet. One with Rocket Star is his name. He did an animated film, an animated rock opera called Death of a Rock Star. I've got the Blu-ray. It's a complete rock opera. The whole dialogue, it's all sing-song. It's all songs. He animated it himself. We talk about how he taught himself how to animate. He's a musician by heart. That's his true artistry, but he got into doing the animation, and it was a very interesting conversation. And then I got to talk to 2 folks whose work I followed for quite some time, Hunter Johnson and Nicole Sinaglia. I hope I pronounced it right. Who did? They've got a new film coming out called Porcelain. It's a psychological thriller. They've done many films together. They've been on the Malvolia web hostess show, if you haven't seen that, but got to interview them. And yeah, I just recorded 4 reviews today. 2 of them will be going to the Patreon, and 2 of them will be going up on the YouTube channel this week. So look for that, plus some physical media stuff as well coming up. So there you have it, folks. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, we'll just say good night, everyone.
Good night.
Night.
Good night.